Thank you very much, ladies and gentlemen, and welcome to the White House. On behalf of the President, let me acknowledge some of the distinguished guests who are here. Lou Gerstner, Chairman and CEO of IBM, who I will present in a moment, and Mrs. McDara McCall, Managing Director of Parent Soup, who will also speak in a moment. Let me express great thanks to the members of the President's Cabinet who have worked hard on this matter, Secretary Bill Daley, Ambassador Charlene Barshevsky, the Honorable Jack Gibbons, Director of the Office of Science and Technology Policy, the Administrator of GSA, Dave Barham, Commissioner of the SEC, Steve Wallman, and Chairman Robert Petofsky of the FTC, and Commissioner Christine Varney of the FTC, Deputy Secretary of Treasury Larry Summers. Members of Congress who are present include Representative Ed Markey, Representative Bart Gordon, Representative Sam Gadenson, Representative Floyd Flake, and if there are other distinguished guests who are not on my list, I apologize for not introducing you and acknowledging you. It's not an intentional oversight. We view this as a very exciting day because today we establish a new framework for commerce in the digital age, guidelines that protect the public interest while liberating private enterprise, that address the world's newest technology with our nation's oldest values. In the last few years, the Internet has grown like Topsy, or in the South we'd say it's grown like kudzu. And the World Wide Web, starting just a few short years ago, has become an unprecedented worldwide phenomenon. Today there's more email, more users, more hosts, more websites than anybody can even count. What began as a specialized network for computer scientists many years ago has of course now become a global nervous system for all of the world. It is reshaping how all of us work, learn, and stay in touch. But the Internet's most lasting impact may be just beginning to unfold. I should say one of the most lasting impacts, because there will be many that we can't even anticipate yet. But certainly the information superhighway promises to utterly transform commercial transactions, how we buy and sell the stuff of our lives. Let me briefly tell you what I mean. More than a century ago, if you wanted to raise money for a business, even a large one, you practically had to go door to door looking for someone to buy a stake. But Wall Street and the stock exchange changed that. They established a market for capital, linking people who wanted to purchase company shares with people who wanted to sell them. In much the same fashion, the Internet can create a market, a global market, for just about everything else. Nick Negroponte, a longtime friend and head of MIT's Media Lab, had a great way of explaining how significant this emerging global marketplace is to the new economy. He said that if they had made a 1997 version of the movie The Graduate with that famous line about plastics, someone would walk up to Dustin Hoffman's character and whisper, "Psst, transactions." Well, already you can use the Internet to send flowers to your spouse, or order a new book for one of your children, or make travel reservations and buy a ticket, and that's just the very beginning. Pretty soon you'll be able to buy just about anything online. You'll be able to find the best price in the world almost instantly from your home computer. And you'll be able to do it in a virtual shopping mall that is open all day, all night, every day, all across the world. In this emerging digital marketplace, nearly anyone with a good idea and a little software can set up shop and become the corner store for the entire planet. That promises to unleash a revolution in entrepreneurship and innovation, a cascade of new products and services that today we can scarcely imagine. With the framework that we are announcing today, we are helping to make sure that commerce goes digital, that business goes global, and that ingenuity goes wild. In essence, we're defining government's role in these early days of the Internet. We're saying that our approach to electronic commerce must be guided by a digital Hippocratic oath. First, do no harm. Esther Dyson would be the one to start the applause on that. The Internet moves too quickly for heavy-handed government regulations. Were we to apply such rules to this emerging marketplace, the rules would likely be obsolete before they hit the law books, an impediment to individual creativity rather than a safeguard of the common good. If we move to heavily regulate something whose form changes so quickly and so often, we risk suffocating the very essence of the Internet. In order to realize its full promise, we must give the Internet room to breathe and continue growing. But equally important, we must make sure the Internet has room for everyone. A proper framework for promoting private commerce requires an unwavering commitment to protecting the public interest. And here, government does have a role, working with the private sector to preserve individual privacy, to protect intellectual property, to promote fair competition, and to ensure open access. So thank you for joining us on this extremely important day. I'd like to thank people from 18 separate agencies, and especially Ira Magaziner, all of whom have worked hard for months and months to bring us this historic report, and we applaud your efforts. And now it's my pleasure to introduce one of the leading figures in this new world of commerce, a man who has achieved a remarkable feat of what you might call genetic engineering, because in only 4 years, he transformed his company from an industrial age elephant to an information age gazelle. Ladies and gentlemen, the CEO of IBM, Lou Gerstner.
Thank you, Mr. Vice President, and thank all of you. This is an important day for everyone who spends time and money on or is thinking about spending time or money on the Internet. Today, 50 million people are connected to the net. That number will probably grow to 500 million, and some even predict 1 billion. Now, the number one question that I get from people as I go around the world, particularly if they're over 40, is what are all these people going to do when they're connected to the net? What will they value? And what will they be willing to pay for? The answer is all the things they do today. Buy and sell, bank, get entertainment, trade stocks, earn a college degree, renew a driver's license. And this is what we mean by e-commerce. It's not just about buying and selling over the net. It's about using this powerful new technology to transform every aspect of what we do as people. To be sure, the net does open a vast landscape for business. And a lot of important pieces have had to be put in place before e-commerce could take hold. New technologies, agreements on standards for things like secure financial transactions, and significantly, leadership initiatives like today's policy framework. But these elements are now in place. Today we can say in confidence and with confidence, the Internet is not only open for business, it's ready for business. The Internet has come of age, and it has implications. Clearly for enterprises, it represents enormous opportunity because networks are great levelers. They dissolve many traditional barriers to entry. We all know that location is a tenet of good business. Increasingly, the net is where business must be. With a first-class website, Any business of any size can challenge entrenched franchises and brands anywhere in the world. In the last 12 months alone, IBM has helped over 10,000 companies, small, medium, and large, to seize the power of the net to enter new markets, create new business offerings, extend their brand, and create growth and jobs. The potential is huge for businesses that move to the net quickly. Some estimate that e-commerce volumes today are about $2 billion and more than $1 trillion by the year 2010. For the millions of people who are connected to the net and who are asking, what do I do with it? They can now dive into the richest, most diverse, borderless, sleepless marketplace the world has ever seen. And as they shift from browsing to buying, they can do so with greater confidence that their transactions will be secure and their private information remains private. As exciting as all of this is, commerce is only one type of human activity this technology is transforming. As with the electric light, the printing press, manned flight, other great technologies the world has seen, information technology is and will continue to transform everything. It will vastly improve every aspect of society and human interaction. How we'll make the arts available to all, how we'll receive government services, care for the elderly and homebound. With networks, we have the chance to deliver the best to the neediest, the best teachers to our most remote rural school districts, or the forgotten enclaves of the inner cities, the skill of the finest physicians to patients in need without regard for physical proximity, and knowledge about the world to all the people in the world. Of course, as all of this takes off, it spawns a range of societal and technological issues. Some we recognize as old issues in new garb, along with new challenges, dealing with taxation, security, and parental responsibility. The answers to those issues begin with the kind of leadership that has resulted in today's announcement. Government and industry working together, defining appropriate roles and responsibilities. This sends a very powerful message. The private sector, an open marketplace and competition, not the government, will regulate opportunity and the pace of innovation. Industry welcomes these initiatives, and we are committed to work with the administration, with Congress, and other governments to make the recommendations in this report a reality and to fully deliver the promise of a networked world. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Lou. The digital economy has produced legions of new entrepreneurs. One of them is with us today, the managing director of Parent Soup. Parent Soup, like so many other new businesses these days, just couldn't exist without the internet. It's a website for moms and dads, chock full of consumer information, healthcare advice, online polls, and child care products, and all the rest. In fact, leading up to our family conference in Nashville last week where the president spoke, Parent Soup had a very lively ongoing dialogue about the topic of families and learning. But more than any of that, Parent Soup is a virtual community bringing together parents all across the country to learn from each other about how to perform society's most important task. Ladies and gentlemen, please welcome McDara McCall.
First, on behalf of everyone at Parent Soup and everyone at iVillage, which is Parent Soup's parent company, I'd like to thank the President and the Vice President for including us in today's event. I was joking with Mr. Gerstner when we were preparing to come in here that the headlines for this event might read Big Blue and Who? but listening to the Vice President speak, I realized that, of course, the story of Parent Soup and iVillage really is the story of the internet. You know, 2 years ago, Parent Soup and iVillage were nothing more than an idea scribbled on the back of a napkin. Today, iVillage employs more than 100 people. We have seen our revenues increase by 300% in the last 6 months, and we have about 250,000 people registered as members of our communities. The secret of iVillage success has been a good business plan backed by a wonderful, elegant concept, and the concept is community. As President Clinton recently said, the most difficult job is not being the president. The most difficult job is being a parent. And don't we know it at Parent Soup? Now, when my mother had the rather difficult task of raising me, she at least had the advantage of the backyard clothesline where she could swap tales with the neighbors and get reassurance about whether she was doing the right thing for chickenpox. But these days, 2 parents work, maybe we move a lot and we haven't put down roots in our community, and it's harder for us to come across those casual, impromptu conversations that make up our daily lives. So where does a working parent go after a hard day at the office, maybe even the Oval Office, if he wants to talk to someone else about raising an ADD son or the joys and fears he feels as he watches his daughter go off to college? Well, because of the vision of iVillage, that parent goes online, and he goes to Parent Soup. And in Parent Soup, he has a 24-hour-a-day, 7-day-a-week community where real people are talking about real issues. Where else but the internet could we have created a place where your backyard extends around the globe and where a trusted neighbor could live 5,000 miles away? Now, the sponsors and advertisers who participate in Parent Soup become the shopkeepers in this well-lit, safe online community. And the goods and services that we sell in Parent Soup, our members talk about. They recommend it to each other. The vision that iVillage, the vision and the creativity that iVillage was allowed to foster on the internet is what we really want to make sure continues. And it's why we're so pleased to engage in this conversation to ensure that other businesses, other startup dreams like iVillage can see their success, and that other sites like Parent Soup can reach into the real lives of real people everywhere and make a difference. Thanks.
And now it's my pleasure to introduce a man who has made digital history. And actually, before asking the President to come up here, I don't know if any of you saw him behind me when I was speaking last night in New York City, running around getting dancers to come up and go through some routine. Well, Mr. President, McDara and Lou and I may, during your remarks, work out a today may not be the day to get him back. Ladies and gentlemen, it is my pleasure to introduce the first president with an email address. The first president with a homepage. The first president to sign a bill in cyberspace. The first president to broadcast the State of the Union address over the internet. The president who has presided over the most dramatic transformation of communications that we have ever seen. Ladies and gentlemen, the first president of the information age, President Bill Clinton.
Thank you very much. Thank you. Thank you very much. Thank you. Thank you very much. Thank you very much, Mr. Vice President. For those of you who do not know what he was talking about, we went to a Broadway show last night, and there were 3 guys in the show who did the Macarena in the show. So after it was over, I thought only fair when the Vice President spoke, they'd come up and do the Macarena while It was sort of background music, you know. Lou Gerstner, thank you for being here. That was a remarkable statement, and the Vice President gave you a remarkable introduction. I never before thought of you as a gazelle, but I always will now. Thank you, McDowell McCall, for the work you do and for the fine words you spoke. To the members of the Cabinet and the administration and the people here from industry and consumer groups, I thank all of you. I especially want to thank for this remarkable report all the agencies who worked on it, and in particular Ira Magaziner, who did a brilliant job in bringing everybody together and working this out over a very long period of time, and we thank you for what you did on that. Thank you all. I thank the members of Congress for being here, Congressman Gadenson, Gordon, Markey, and Flake, and for their interest in these issues. You know, I had two disparate experiences in the last few days that would convince a person of limited technological proficiency like myself that the world is changing rather dramatically. You have to remember now, the Vice President coined the term information superhighway 20 years ago, back when I didn't even have an electric typewriter. But anyway, I had these two experiences, which were very interesting to me. It's sort of a mark of how our world is changing. As you may have seen in the press, the oldest living member of my family, my great uncle, passed away a few days ago, and so I went back to this little town in Arkansas where I was born. And when I got there late at night, I drove out in the country for a few miles, to my cousin's house where the family was gathering. And she has a son who's in his mid-30s now, who lives in another small town in Arkansas, who, after we talked for 5 minutes, proceeded to tell me that he played golf on the internet several times a month from his small town in Arkansas with an elderly man in Australia who unfailingly beat him. An unheard of experience just a few years ago. He knows this guy. He's explained to me how he finds this man. And then he says, you know, my brother likes to play backgammon on the internet, and it got so I couldn't talk to him, but now I know how I can go get him out of his game, and he can go find a place to come have a visit with me. And they can hold the game while we have an emergency talk. I mean, these whole conversations, you know, the way people, it's just totally unthinkable a few years ago. And then Sunday, the New York Times crossword puzzle, I don't know if you saw it, but it was for people like me. It was entitled Technophobes. And I'm really trying to overcome my limitations. You know, I'm technologically challenged, and I'm learning how to do all kinds of things on the computer because Chelsea's going off to school and I need to be more literate. But you ought to go back and pull this, all of you who are now into cyberspace, and see if you can work your way back to another world, because they had high-tech clues with common answers, like floppy disk was a clue, the answer was Frisbee. Hard drive was a clue, the answer was Tiger's tee shot. Digital monitor was the clue, the answer was manicurist. So, anyway, we've come a long way. And I'd like to give you some sense of history about this, because interestingly enough, this gathering at the White House, which I think is truly historic, is in a line of such developments in this House that have shaped our country's history of communications and networking. 139 years ago, here at the White House, America celebrated our first technological revolution here in communications. That was the year Queen Victoria sent the very first transatlantic telegraph transmission to President Buchanan right here. And later, the first telephone in Washington, D.C. was located in a room upstairs, the same room in which Woodrow Wilson managed the conduct of America's involvement in World War I. So we've seen a lot of interesting technological developments over time in the White House. Now we celebrate the incredible potential of the internet and the World Wide Web. When I first became president, which wasn't so long ago, only physicists were using the World Wide Web. Today, as Lou said, there are about 50 million people in 150 countries connected to the information superhighway. There will be 5 times as many by the year 2000, perhaps more, doing everything conceivable. We cannot imagine exactly what the 21st century will look like, but we know that its science and technology and its unprecedented fusions of cultures and economies will be shaped in large measure by the internet. We are very fortunate to have with us today, together for the very first time at the White House, the 4 individuals who gave birth to the internet. Vincent Cerf and Bob Kahn, who were critical to the development of the internet in the 1970s. Tim Berners-Lee, who invented the World Wide Web, which brought the internet into our homes, offices, and schools. And David Duke, who headed the team that invented the fiber optic cable, which made high-speed internet connections possible. Their groundbreaking work has done more to shape and create the world our children will inherit than virtually any invention since the printing press. And I would like to ask all 4 of them to stand and be recognized now. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you, sir. Thank you. Thank you, Tim. Thank you. Thank you. The report which is being released and the work that has been done is our effort to meet the challenge to make the internet work for all of our people. Within a generation, we can make it so that every book ever written, every symphony ever composed, every movie ever made, every painting ever painted is within reach of all of our children within seconds with the click of a mouse, which was black eye in the crossword puzzle yesterday. Now, this potential is nothing short of revolutionary. The Vice President and I are working to connect every classroom and school library to the internet by the year 2000, so that for the first time all the children, without regard to their personal circumstances, economic or geographical, can have access to the same knowledge in the same time at the same level of quality. It could revolutionize education in America, and many of you are helping on that, and we are grateful. We've also included $300 million in our new balanced budget plan to help build the next generation internet so that leading universities and national labs can communicate in speeds 1,000 times faster than today to develop new medical treatments, new sources of energy, new ways of working together. But as has already been said, one of the most revolutionary uses of the internet is in the world of commerce. Already we can buy books and clothing, obtain business advice, purchase everything from garden tools to hot sauce to high-tech communications equipment over the internet. But we know it is just the beginning. Trade on the internet is doubling or tripling every single year. In just a few years, it will generate hundreds of billions of dollars in goods and services. If we establish an environment in which electronic commerce can grow and flourish, then every computer will be a window open to every business, large and small, everywhere in the world. Not only will industry leaders such as IBM be able to tap into new markets, but the smallest startup company will have an unlimited network of sales and distribution at its fingertips. It will literally be possible to start a company tomorrow and next week do business in Japan and Germany and Chile, all without leaving your home, something that used to take years and years and years to do. In this way, the internet can be and should be a truly empowering force for large and small business people alike. But today, we know electronic commerce carries also a number of significant risks that could block the extraordinary growth and progress from taking place. There are almost no international agreements or understanding about electronic commerce. Many of the most basic consumer and copyright protections are missing from cyberspace. In many ways, electronic commerce is like the Wild West of the global economy. Our task is to make sure that it's safe and stable terrain for those who wish to trade on it. And we must do so by working with other nations now, while electronic commerce is still in its infancy. To meet this challenge, I'm pleased to announce the release of our new Framework for Global Electronic Commerce, a report that lays out principles we will advocate as we seek to establish basic rules for international electronic commerce, with minimal regulations and no new discriminatory taxes. Because the Internet has such explosive potential for prosperity, it should be a global free trade zone. It should be a place where government makes every effort, first, as the Vice President said, not to stand in the way, to do no harm. We want to encourage the private sector to regulate itself as much as possible. We want to encourage all nations to refrain from imposing discriminatory taxes, tariffs, unnecessary regulations, cumbersome bureaucracies on electronic commerce. Where government involvement is necessary, its aim should be to support a predictable, consistent, legal environment for trade and commerce to flourish on fair and understandable terms. And we should do our best to revise any existing laws or rules that could inhibit electronic commerce. We want to put these principles into practice by January 1st of the year 2000. Today, I am taking 3 specific actions toward that goal and asking the Vice President to oversee our progress in meeting it. First, I'm directing all federal department and agency heads to review their policies that affect global electronic commerce and to make sure that they are consistent with the 5 core principles of this report. Second, I'm directing members of my cabinet to work to achieve some of our key objectives within the next year. I'm directing the Treasury Secretary, Bob Rubin, to negotiate agreements where necessary to prevent new discriminatory taxes on electronic commerce. I'm directing our Ambassador of Trade, Charlene Barshevsky, to work within the WTO, the World Trade Organization, to turn the Internet into a free trade zone within the next 12 months, building on the progress of our landmark Information Technology Agreement and our Global Telecommunications Agreement, which eliminated tariffs and reduced trade barriers on more than $1 trillion in products and services. I'm directing Commerce Secretary Daley to work to establish basic consumer and copyright protections for the Internet to help to create the predictable legal environment for electronic commerce that we need, and to coordinate our outreach to the private sector on a strategy to achieve this. I'm also directing the relevant agencies to work with Congress, industry, and law enforcement to make sure Americans can conduct their affairs in a secure electronic environment that will maintain their full trust and confidence. Next week, Secretary Daley and our magaziner will lead a delegation to Europe to present our vision for electronic commerce to our European trading partners. Third, I call on the private sector to help us meet one of the greatest challenges of electronic commerce, ensuring that we develop effective methods of protecting the privacy of every American, especially children who use the Internet. Many of you have already begun working with Chairman Potofsky and Commissioner Varney of the Federal Trade Commission on this issue. I urge you to continue that work and to find new ways to safeguard our most basic rights and liberties so that we can trade and learn and communicate in safety and security. Finally, it is especially important, as I said last week, to give parents and teachers the tools they need to make the Internet safe for children. A hands-off approach to electronic commerce must not mean indifference when it comes to raising and protecting children. I ask the industry leaders here today to join with us in developing a solution for the Internet as powerful for the computer as the V-chip will be for television, to protect children in ways that are consistent with the First Amendment. Later this month, I will convene a meeting with industry leaders and groups representing Internet users, teachers, parents, and librarians to help parents protect their children from objectionable content in cyberspace. Today, we act to ensure that international trade on the Internet remains free of new discriminatory taxes, free of tariffs, free from burdensome regulations, and safe from piracy. In the 21st century, we can build much of our prosperity on innovations in cyberspace in ways that most of us cannot even imagine. This vision contemplates an America in which every American, consumers, small business people, corporate CEOs, will be able to extend our trade to the farthest reaches of the planet. If we do the right things now in the right way, we can lead our economy into an area where our innovation, our flexibility, and our creativity yield tremendous benefits for all of our people, in which we can keep opportunity alive, bring our people closer to each other, and bring America closer to the world. I feel very hopeful about this, and I assure you that we will do our part to implement the principles we advocate today. Thank you very much.